Tokenization. There's some fans asking me what is tokenization, number one. Second, can they actually tokenize BTS properties like songs, videos, art, or whatever, photos? And what is NFTs? Why are people doing it? And I can't believe I'm about to discuss the blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and tokenization in connection to Asian art and entertainment. But I guess here we are. So we're going to discuss that. What is tokenization? Can you tokenize BTS or their properties or any other artist for that matter? What is NFTs? Why are artists doing it? And all those good stuff. Okay, tokenization. For you to understand what tokenization is, we need to understand blockchain. Okay, blockchain is a chain of blocks. Ergo, blockchain. Okay, but it's actually true. It's actually a ledger, a digital ledger. So if you have ever seen, I'm sure you've seen a ledger, the paper that's being used by bookkeepers to take note of their expenses, income, and stuff like that. So for example, you record March 2, I bought a car. April, I bought a house. May, I went to Caribbean. June, I earned $50 million and whatever. So you put everything there, and then at the end of the page, you total, or at the end of the month, or whatever you prefer, you total, you see your balance. Okay, now you're left with 50 million. Okay, so that's a traditional ledger. Now, what happens is that, for example, you realize that back in March, the car that you bought, you put in the ledger, you put 15,000. But then you realize that's wrong. You actually bought it for 35,000. So now you go back to your ledger, you erase it, or you write over the 1 and change it to 3, or you get a liquid eraser and then put a 3 after it dries out. The thing is that when you change it, nothing happens to the rest of your entries, right? Because it's just that you wrote it, it's manual. And the only way you can change the total is if you actually erase it, or using an eraser or a liquid marker. The thing is that it's going to be visible. You know that something has changed, you changed something, or somebody changed something. Now, put that concept in a digital format. Every page of a ledger, think of it as a block. And a certain characteristic of block 1 is carried over to block 2. So something in page 1 is carried on to page 2. Something in page 2 is carried on to page 3. Something in page 3 is carried on to page 4. So block pages equals block. So that's how it goes. So once you change something in block 1, everything automatically changes. Like an Excel formula, right? If you change something in one cell, it may, depending on your formula, it's going to affect the other cells, and it's going to affect the total automatically. So it's the same thing with a blockchain. It changed something in block 2 or block 1 or block 3 or whatever, and it's going to change the rest. The problem is that there are nodes, and these nodes are the ones that verify the transactions of blockchain, and there are thousands and thousands of those around the world. Most of the time they're volunteers and they're actually not getting paid. Nodes are actually computers, by the way. They're not people. And so each node, each computer, each node has a copy of all the blocks and all the transactions ever created in the history of that blockchain. So if I have a computer at home that's a node, and somewhere in another part of the world messed up or did something or altered something in block 3,585, then the total number of blocks would be what? 5 million. The rest of all of those blocks, that will change. And so my node, the node in my house, is going to realize that something has changed. It's going to alert them, hey, somebody changed something in this block. And you will and that's most likely not going to be verified. Remember, the nodes are the ones that are verifying the transaction. So you either need to get 100% verification, or a majority of the nodes need to verify the transaction. And if that alerts the nodes that something has been altered, most likely you're going to get audited, and most likely you're not going to get approved. So that will never be a verified transaction. So that's that's why they call it the immutable ledger. You can actually change it, but it's so difficult to change it. So once it's there, it's permanent for the rest of time. I remember someone made a transaction, and they said something like, on this day, somebody effed up the financial system of the United States of America, or something like that. So that was what was in the notes when they made the transaction, and it's going to be there forever. So if anybody ever goes into it and look at all the transactions, somebody's, in the future, 100 years, 200, 1,000 years from now, they'll find it, because it's immutable, it's permanent. So you can change it, it's possible, but it's not feasible. Okay, that's what a blockchain is. And so how does it relate to tokenization? Anything, any property, for example, a song, you put in the blockchain, it'll be there forever. So what it does is, if you want to tokenize something, so for example, I want to tokenize this mug, this Shuki mug, I'll tokenize it, this specific one. So I will create a digital representation of this. You can think about it like a QR code, right? When I buy it in the store, it usually has a tag which has a QR code. They scan it, and the machine knows, okay, that's a Shuki coffee mug. She's buying it. Let's charge her however much they charge me for that. Now the difference is that there's certain differences between a QR code and a token of something. One is that the QR code is actually held by a private company. There's a company behind it. They run it. They maintain the data. Something happens in the database of that company, then all of your records are screwed up. A token of something is in the blockchain, which is not owned by anybody. It's run by nodes, and nodes are volunteers. I hope that's clear. A QR code identifies a set of products, right? So for example, if there are 5,000 of these, they have the same QR code. So they scan it, then the machine identifies it, but it will not specifically identify this mug. It will just identify that this is a Shuki mug. But a token will identify each mug, Shuki mug, as a unique. So this mug, if I create a token of this, it will forever be tracked. It goes and somewhere it will be tracked. Then people will know that this is the specific mug that has been being transported all over the world. Okay, so that's the difference. You can think of a token as a title of something. So for example, you have a house, right, or a car. You have a title for it that proves you own it. That's a token. That's a token of something. So if they tokenize this song, if they tokenize Dope, for example, BTS tokenized Dope, then they're creating a title for that Dope, and whoever buys that song, like if they, for example, they auction it, they put it in the blockchain, whoever buys that song gets the title of the song Dope. Now whatever happens to Dope, whoever bought it will benefit from it, if that is what's indicated in the contract. So for example, they put Dope, they auctioned off Dope, their song, and I bought it. Now the blockchain will then identify, okay, now BTS and Big Hit used to own this song. Now it's owned by Fairlane. That's it. Now it's owned by me. So anybody who does anything to it, I will benefit from it. And you can't just take it. Like, even if you have, it's easy, right? Like you record, you can recreate the song. Like if you're a good musician, you can actually just track this, you can recreate it using your own instrument. But if it doesn't have the token that I created, that I now own, then that's an invalid work of art. You're not supposed to do that. It's illegal. I can sue you. Or you copied it, you put it out there, I should benefit from it because I now own the song. The same way I own the title of a house. If anybody wants to buy it or anybody wants to live with it, I need to benefit from it because I own the title of the house. So that's how it goes. The difference is that in a token, it's in an immutable ledger. It's in the blockchain. It will never change. It will forever be there. We will always be able to track who owned it. if I bought Dope from BTS and Big Hit, and somebody else in the future, for example, RM says, no, wait a minute, I own that. We can go back into the blockchain, we can see who was the last person to own that, and it will, because it's immutable, it was never changed, then we will be able to identify, oh, okay, RM, sorry, she bought it, so she now owns it. You may have created it, but she now owns it. Or maybe it's not RM, maybe it's somebody else. Somebody is contesting the ownership of the song and says, no, wait a minute, I own it. No, let's go back to the blockchain, see, because that ledger is immutable, see who was the last owner of that, and then we can track, was there ever a transfer of that title, of the token of that song? If there wasn't any, then I remain the legal owner of it. Now, why are what is now that we know the connection between a blockchain and a token, let's discuss what is a non-fungible token. Non-fungible token is a token that's non-fungible. You can't, there's only one of a kind. That's basically it. Like money, there's a lot of that, right? But if I create a painting, then there's only one of that. There's never going to be another one. So you cannot funge it. You cannot exchange it with another of its kind. You can exchange it with another of not the same kind. So for example, I created a painting, or maybe BTS, that's that popular painting that Jungkook created of himself, his self-portrait. That's only one. That's non-fungible because there's only one of that. The only way you can own it is if you buy it, or if he gives it to you, or if he exchanges it with something. He says, for example, okay, you give me 100 acres of land, I'll give you this painting, right? So you can exchange it with another thing, but you cannot exchange it with itself. As opposed to money, my $100 bill, I can exchange it with your $100 bill. It's fungible. Okay, so why are artists doing it? So there's been a lot of artists who've done NFTs. They've created tokenized versions or tokenized representation of their art and have sold it because it protects them. It's a better way of creating art because it's non-fungible. Sorry, it's not immutable. So once they created the art, they put it in the blockchain. Nobody can copy it anymore because it's in the blockchain. They created an identity unique to that property, unique to that painting, unique to that song, unique to that video. So it now cannot be, someone can't just use it and not recognize or not pay you or not compensate you for it unless you allow them to use it without compensation. So it's better for the artist. Then I can create it, pass it on to somebody else. So they can maybe indicate in the contract that if somebody owns it, they will still earn like 20% of whatever. Like for example, Eminem created a beat and he sold it, but according to his condition, 10% or 20% of whatever revenue. So for example, he created a beat, created an NFT for it, I bought it. So now, but in his contract, in the contract that we have, it says that if I use that beat for a song, whatever revenue I have, Eminem will still get 10%. Now, because it's in the blockchain, whatever I do with that will always be trackable. Whatever I do with that beat will always be trackable. So Eminem will always have 10% of, because it's immutable. It's in that blockchain. Now, what if somebody steals that? Like they just copy that song, right? They can do that. They can recreate the song in their whatever, and then do whatever they want with it without putting it in the blockchain, therefore making it untrackable. They can certainly do that. Many people are still doing that. But the thing is that people in the future, when everyone is aware of how tokenization works, everyone does everything on the blockchain, then anything off the blockchain and has no token, then you can question it. Wait a minute, you're using that beat that Eminem created in the blockchain, sold it to somebody, and whatever it is that you're creating doesn't have that token that Eminem created and that has been sold to somebody. So I hope I'm not confusing you too much. So that's what an NFT is. That's why many artists are using it, because it protects them more. And it also protects collectors like me. If I buy his beat, even if I don't use it, I just want to own an Eminem beat, for my own personal pleasure. The same way anyone would want to own a painting. They don't do anything with it. They just display it. So if I want to own the song of BTS, I don't really want to do anything with it. I just want to know that I own it. Then it protects me. I will only be the only one who can ever own it. Nobody else can own it. You can't, if I say, okay, I'm going to buy Dope, they put it for auction, I'm going to buy Dope. I don't want it played ever in any radio, in any streaming platform, whatever. I just want it for myself. If I hear that on the radio, I can call them out and say, hey, wait a minute, I already own that, and I do not allow the release of that song or streaming of that song ever. And so there's going to be legal repercussions. So that's what tokenization is, and that's how it is connected to the blockchain, and that's why artists are wanting to actually get into NFTs. Now, nobody can create a token. Nobody can tokenize the properties of BTS other than Big Hit and BTS themselves, because they're the legal owners. So if anybody ever goes into auction and say, hey, I've tokenized the very first tweet of BTS, and you will, unless it's Big Hit or BTS, then they shouldn't. You don't buy it, don't support it, don't whatever, because it's not valid. It will become a valid transaction in the blockchain if it's mathematically correct, but illegally they will have no right over it. So just don't support it. So there you go. That's the answer to the question. I hope you learned something. I don't know if I said this in the beginning. In full disclosure, I do own some cryptocurrencies, and I am actually the marketing manager of a cryptocurrency platform, and cryptocurrency works on blockchain. But that's just a disclosure, just so you know.